One of the highlights of things that we're doing now in our ministry is really because of an occurrence that happened. Went to a kind of a church conference to learn about some metrics with regard to evangelism, and my wife happened to sit next to a woman that was part of World Impact. She didn't know it. They were both introverts, but they happened to talk to one another, and she shared World Impact and some things that they were doing. And my wife says, I just think that they're great people. She was very kind, and she shared this piece about a Bible college, seminary in the box, if you will. And I just think you should hear about it. I says, well, it sounds very interesting. I trust her judgment implicit, and so we did. We had dinner with them a few weeks later. They shared about it, and I was really interested because I'm kind of a teacher at heart. It was about equipping. The curriculum was already laid out, and I just want to see the curriculum. I said, let me see it.
Yeah.
And so when I actually got a hold of it and began just with the first few pages, the language was just, it got my attention. I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, he's talking about apostles and prophets and the message that Jesus left them. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where I would start.
Yeah.
And so I was sold on it. My question was just really how to get involved. From that point, we got involved pretty quick, reasonably, I think, in terms of how do you do it.
Yeah.
And so we began to have our own satellite, own Bible college in our church, advertised it, was for it, almost demanded that people really should get involved in it.
And this was the Capstone?
This was the Capstone curriculum, those 16 classes, you know, and the first one, biblical interpretation and things like that. Yeah. Got involved in it, and in doing that, simultaneously, I'm pastoring a church which involves many other things, and I happen to be in Africa on a crusade. The New Language is a festival with another ministry that had invited me to be a part of that, to help them, and to kind of oversee some deliverance and other things that was going on. And another pastor from the DRC was there. Yeah. He saw me. We had fellowship. We had dinner. We didn't talk about a lot. I just kind of met him and just to know who he was, along with other pastors. Finished that mission, came back home. It was on Facebook. We kind of just put some things on Facebook for those that follow us to know what we're doing. He saw it, and he made a powerful call in terms of he wanted us to help him. His language was, could you really come over here and help us? And it was the way he said it. And so for me, it was a clarion call, but it was just like the one that the Apostle Paul had. It was a Macedonian call. Yeah. I'm like, man. And I said, you know, this is really God speaking after we prayed about it. He said, we really need to be equipped. In the landscape of all the things that are going on in the DRC with heresy and the pastors to be equipped, we really don't have that. And I had just seen fruit from the other ministry when I was there of 60, 70,000 people came to the altar to come to Christ, to be in the kingdom. Wow. And I was like, that is a huge number, and I know that they don't have pastors that equip. So it spoke practically and it spoke spiritually regarding there was a need. Yeah. And so I said yes without really knowing how is this going to happen. And there were some presumptions that I made regarding doing it, which was, yes, we'll do it. We're doing it in our church. We just got to figure out the logistics of how do we make it happen there. Maybe we're on Zoom or something like that. And then there was what I call a roadblock or stop. We didn't have the curriculum in French. I presume that maybe that they spoke English or that we had their language because we had it in Spanish. So of course we might have it in Swahili or French, but we did not. We didn't have it. And so then began the journey of what do we do? We got to pull together a translation team. And so this was now out of my skill set, if you will, in terms of the actual mechanics of how do you do it.
Yeah.
I don't speak the language. I can't interpret, only by Holy Spirit. Like, how do we do this professionally and get a good product? And so different people came into my life. Harold Roesler, that was transitioning with World Impact. He had done it with them.
Yeah.
I knew and met a good friend in Tanzania who I learned spoke 5 languages. One of them was French that he was proficient in. He could do it. I'm like, wow, okay, so I says, we're getting there. Man, I see God's hand moving. We're getting there. Okay, so what do we do? How do we translate? How long is this going to take? And so Harold is asking me different questions about the people, the language, what would really work for them, what they need. I would report back to him. We would pray, and we would have conversations about now understanding with this third party, the translator, the person that I said, this person should be ahead of the team, or at least on the team, Pastor Eresh in Tanzania. And we all agreed, and now it was just a question of how long is it going to take and where do we get the funding? And just kind of go through the mechanics of saying, okay, 1 page takes this long, it costs this, where do we get the funding? And that began the focus of here is what we need to pray about. And this was in 2018. This was in 2018.
Yeah, not that long ago.
And so not that long ago, but we just finished this June translating all 16 modules plus some others into French.
Yeah.
And so it's almost a blur with regard to the swiftness because in the moment it seemed to go slow, but there was always reporting, always prayer, always thinking, and we got it done with regard to the funding and the diligence because I was always pushing. Harold was always talking with us, with keeping us up to date. What's going on? How does it look? And I'm reporting back. Yeah, it's a good translation. They're understanding and pushing. Okay, this needs to be the next one. Yeah. When we do that one, how about these 2 next? And thinking of a linear perspective of the things in terms of the curriculum. What subject needs to come next in terms of what I'm giving them? Because they're taking this, even though they weren't finished, to begin to start teaching in their churches to be equipped. It was very new for them, this information and training that they were getting. I think one of the biggest challenges always when you want to do something, it's always provision in terms of people, resource, and also just money, funding. Where is the money coming from? That was the biggest challenge once we learned how much it was going to cost. You figure $5 a page, but 300 pages.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
To translate, where is that money going to come from over a period of these 16 modules? Some, are more pages than others. So, but that was kind of the average 275 pages. But anyway, that was the hugest challenge. And we talked about that. And we said, how is that going to happen? And we were able to start with some money, but how are we going to be consistent and keep it going?
Right.
And Harold was dedicated and committed to that. And really it was God. It was God all along because God has all the provision and the money. And so it was having faith that he would see it through. That's one of the biggest things. But also competence in translating. Sometimes you just get the idea that if a person knows a language, they can speak it, which is different than translating it, having it written so that it makes sense, that they can use it, that they understand it. And so that's the challenge in terms of finding the person, and when the product is finished, when you read it, that you say, yeah, you have the person that has the product that says, yeah, it is good. And so we've had a couple of people on the team that aren't on the team now that were good, because that's also the challenge of timing. Can they translate it in a time frame that's going to work for the benefit of the finished product?
Yeah.
And, you know, if you can commit an hour a day, it's not enough time. There has to be more time than that.
Right.
And so can you commit to it? There can be hiccups with other things occurring in ministry, person becoming ill, all of that. So those are two biggest challenges, I think, with regard to the timing, the competence, and the funding. Wow. I would say to the donor that what your giving does that impacts our ministry is that it impacts the commission that God gave, go into all the world.
Yeah.
We're going into all the world by being able to translate curriculum so that people can hear it and have it in their natural tongue, so that they can have tangible copies as well. We are poised right now in 2024 August. We're sitting here in June, but we're scheduled to be in the Congo right now. We scheduled it at the beginning of the year, believing that there would be funding. It hasn't come yet, but there are students that are poised to graduate. There are students that are poised because they want to belong to us, that they want me to ordain them as a pastor. And so it helps us to go. It's as if they're there. They're not physically there, but they're helping with their resources, those that are committed, that are ordained. They're helping us to go to do what God has called. They're being, as if you will, the hands and feet in a way to go. There is much of a part of what is going on in terms of our translation. Me on Saturday morning on Zoom as I teach, and I have my translator say what I said so they can hear it.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because of donors, because we're paying the Wi-Fi bill for them. Their infrastructure is weak. They needed a generator. They don't flip a switch.
Right.
They have to have a generator for electricity, for Wi-Fi. All of that happens via funding, money, donor, whether it comes out of my pocket or to the donor. You know, resources sometimes can only go so far. And so that is what we really pray for. We pray for the donors wherever they are, that they would hear God speak, that they would release the fruit, what God has blessed them with, to bless us, because they are much a part of our ministry. Although we may not know their name, we may not see them, but they are blessing us in the come over here and help us.
Right.
How do I come over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say to them. And I would say even more, I would salute them in saying thank you, because I don't take it for granted, because they can decide that their dollars go anywhere. Right. And they have to hear from God. They have to hear the vision and be fully persuaded that God is speaking to them to direct funds to World Impact. Yeah. World Impact needs to stay afloat. It needs to keep going until Jesus comes, because I believe that it is commissioned by God to do what it's doing.